On today's show, Cooper Flagg is the real deal, but if you're sick of hearing me tell you, I'm going to have somebody that watched him a bunch more than I did. We'll talk about that and more in today's Locked On Mavs. Stop it! Let's go! Stop! The number one pick will go to the Dallas Mavericks. Cooper Flagg will fly in Dallas.
Dogs, all of us, all five.
You are Locked On Mavs, your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Still can't.
Your team every day.
I'm gonna get a city like that.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks, your team every day. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member covering the Mavs for 10 years. Thanks for being an everydayer, making Locked On Mavs your first listen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season's around the corner. Visit FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. Whew, those future bets, they come in fast. Joining me from No Ceilings today, Corey Tulaba, now with the Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings show. Corey, what you got for me?
What's up, my man? I appreciate you having me on here. Big, exciting day for the Locked On Network, for us at No Ceilings. And I had to make it even better than you know, I had to join in on the fun.
What's better than talking about Cooper Flagg? For me, not much is better right now than getting to talk about Cooper Flagg. You don't get to be bailed out this often in life. So we'll talk to Corey about Cooper Flagg. He's seen him in person a ton. He even saw him in high school a bunch of times. And so we'll get his perspective on Cooper Flagg. We'll talk also about Ryan Nembhard and Miles Kelly, those guys as well. The Mavs are bringing in from this draft class, and just any of his thoughts on some of the Mavericks players that they have right now. And but let's start here. Corey, give me a little bit of your background. Give me your just how you joined No Ceilings, and then how you came to be in this draft world, basically.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was basically COVID. You know, a lot of us in the draft world like consider the class of 2020 because the world shut down, and like the only basketball thing to look forward to at that point was the draft. We didn't know if the season was going to happen. The bubble was not a thought yet, right? So like,
you're telling me we did this show every day during that.
Yeah, like, so the draft was really the only thing, unless you were looking backwards, that could actually make you feel like you were participating in sports, like for real, with a purpose. So, you know, that's when it really popped off. And, you know, I'd been coaching basketball. I've been coaching for about 12 years at the varsity level. And so I was like, you know what? Like, I think I can make videos like as good as Mike Schmitz at ESPN. Like, I think I said that out loud to myself. Yeah. I made 2 videos and I got a DM from Mike Schmitz asking if I wanted to help out with a project. And so I started.
He goes, "They're not better than mine."
No. Mike is the GOAT. Mike was the GOAT. So I started working with him as a video editor up until he got hired by the Trailblazers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and even I think through after he got hired, you know, just in case, because they didn't know what's going on with ESPN. So you know, so I was doing that, and but in that time, I was also kind of doing my own thing. We had started a podcast with Albert and myself, who you will hear on the Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings feed on Thursday, and you know, it kind of felt like we were collaborating with a lot of people in the space. And I'm big on like rising tides lift all boats. Like sometimes people get way too competitive with content. And at the end of the day, I think that everybody's teammates in their own way. Like for me, you know, whoever is in the draft space, if somebody's going to find my work because they got into the draft. So really, I just, I was like, we got to start something. And me and Tyler Rucker kind of, we're collaborating, and we're like, but we got to put a team together so we can do this like in a way that nobody ever has. And, you know, we've been going 5 days a week, written work, podcasts, videos, and trying to just take over and dominate the space. And, you know, we're on our way.
You're putting together a team of remarkable individuals. I wanted Corey to talk about his background because we are now bringing in the No Ceilings crew to host what was Locked On NBA Big Board. Raphael was there. Obviously, Raphael, good friend, and he'll probably still come on the show every once in a while. Still Dallas guy and all that. But we'll have now the No Ceilings guys take over that feed, and it's going to be awesome. I'm excited for the Tylers who just got their first episode off. And so if you haven't, go listen to Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings. Go listen to that feed. Make that your second listen today. And so I wanted Corey to give his little introduction because these guys are legit and they cover the draft with more depth than like sometimes even than I want. It's just so in depth, and it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna make all of us better, and you guys are gonna raise us Well, for sure. Like that rising tides raises all ships thing. Let's talk about Cooper Flagg, because right before we hit record, you were like, yeah, I saw Cooper Flagg like 10 times live before he went to Duke. And that was like an impressive sentence to me, because not a lot of people have seen him that many times. What did you see from Cooper Flagg before Duke? Like what did you see with that player who was rising to become this, guaranteed number one pick?
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of always considered like the number one pick and almost like a lock. Like,
Right.
even if somebody was close, and I think Dylan Harper had a great year individually, but even if it was like neck and neck, just the marketability, like he's going to be one of the faces of the league. Like it was always going to be Cooper. And this is since he was a teenager, playing up levels in FIBA tournaments. But he was a weird eval because one, he was a reclass, which, a lot of prospects do. So he didn't play his senior year in high school. He played it as a freshman in Duke, but he played for Montverde, and Montverde is a powerhouse program, where they were. We'll see how that changes with the coaching change going forward. But when he was a sophomore, and that was the first time I saw him playing in person, you kind of still have to play your role. And, he's not starting every game, because every player on Montverde is going to high major college or the league, most of those guys. So guys don't necessarily get a chance to just like, yo, you're in high school, like here's the rock, like go get 30. Like that's not how that team played. So I think that Cooper really got a chance to kind of figure out how to mesh and play a team game and still dominate without dominating touches there. And that's kind of what stood out. But even seeing him for the first time as a sophomore, and then to where he ended up at, like to where, people are like, oh, like, is Cooper going to be a scorer? Like he averaged almost 20 points per game as a freshman who was, 18-year-olds on draft night. Like, yeah, he's going to get buckets, but that's not how he was kind of known. And people still they don't think about him like that necessarily all the time. So I think that's kind of how his game has evolved for me the most, where it's like, what, maybe there were questions about, was he going to be super aggressive, and could he be that Jason Tatum like wing scorer that he answered by the end of his freshman season.
One of those things was the shooting. That was the one thing I think I read. I don't think it was you, but somebody else from No Ceilings was like, yeah, I was concerned that if he should be the number one pick, and then he shot 38% from three at Duke, and then it was a guaranteed. Was that ever a question for you? And how did you see his shooting change?
I always thought his shooting was going to be like at worst, like adequate. I think like his form is still a little funky. It was kind of funky in high school. Just the kinesthetics of like his shoulders are a little weird. But he has kind of like changed it to where it's more of like that one motion shot that a lot of shooters are getting into. But he always had good touch. And the thing that made his shot really effective is that when he's shooting off the dribble, he gets a lot of elevation on his shot, and he's already tall. And so, the fact that he's tall, he has a high release and he gets elevation. Now it's like, he really has like an unblockable jump shot. And,
those are good around here. We like some of those.
And if you're shooting a contested jump shot, you're also drawing like some fouls as guys are trying to like contest in your space. So, like he's not going to be like Kyle Korver, like flying off like pin downs as a 6'8" wing or anything like that, but he is a shot maker. I don't think he'll ever be considered a shooter, even though he shot nearly 40% from three, 84% from the free throw line. You don't look at him and you're like, oh, there's a shooter in there. He's a shot maker, but he hits really tough shots. And I think he's going to hit the superstar shots eventually. Like, it's not going to happen immediately. You saw him in the clutch this year at Duke sometimes. Like, he got looks off, they just didn't drop, and that's going to happen, especially on like low volume. Like, there's variance there. But he gets to his spots, he rises up, and he can get clean looks. And I think that those shots are the superstar shots that he's going to be accustomed to hitting. And he's got a couple of great teammates to learn from, hitting big shots. Primarily D'Angelo Russell, is, you can obviously tell that's who I'm talking about. So,
hey, former Mount Verde, right? Like,
for sure.
Got that connection
for sure
there with him. Those superstar shots are the ones that the Mavs need. The Mavs need him to hit. They will have the ball in other people's hands, like D'Angelo Russell, like Anthony Davis. So he will need to be a shooter, and so I'm interested to see how that aspect of his game grows. But long term, you want him hitting those shots, like you said. Coming up, how hard is it to reclassify? How often does it happen? What does that actually mean? I want to talk to somebody that actually knows that kind of stuff. Break that down more coming up. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. Brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. I don't know if you listening right now are a Cowboys fan, but I feel like all the Cowboys fans I've talked to are like very tentative about this season and not very much very excited about this season. I talked to a Cowboys fan tonight, and she was like, I don't say it's our year anymore. But maybe you think it is, and you can go bet on some of those futures right now. Cowboys regular season wins over 5.5 wins, minus 400, under 5.5 wins. If you're a Cowboys hater and you're like, they're not going to win more than 5 games, plus 310. Go ahead and check that out on FanDuel. All kinds of other great stuff on there as well. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Visit the FanDuel app and start planning your futures bets today, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. That's August 26th. FanDuel, play your game. Please gamble responsibly.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad. That's what we call our listeners, listening every single day. I've got Corey from No Ceilings. I'm excited to bring in this crew. It's a crew that just grinds draft stuff all the time. You can hear it in the way he talks, how much he watched Cooper Flagg and how much these guys have watched all of these different players. And I love talking to some of you guys as we were bringing you in, and like hearing from like Maxwell. He's like, I love sleepers. Like, what does it take to figure out sleepers? Like, you have to watch so many players in order to get to that point. That's what I love about the No Ceilings, for sure. Corey, you mentioned how Cooper Flagg reclassified and how that is difficult. How hard is that, and how often does it happen in the high school level where somebody will reclassify, especially players that are going to be like on the college stage or eventually get drafted?
Yeah, it's happening, pretty frequently nowadays with like higher level prospects. I mean, now that there's like real money involved in
Sure.
college legally, there is an incentive to get in early, just because you can increase your earnings. Some prospects who do reclassify aren't even draft eligible. You think of Amani Bates, who he reclassified, went to Memphis, didn't work out for him. Jaden Quintance played at Arizona State last year. He was not draft eligible, so he'll be at Kentucky this year. And he's rehabbing from I believe it was a torn ACL. So like it's happening for sure, and I think it's going to be a trend that continues. But some of the players are going to be draft eligible, like Cooper, where if he came out this year, he would be older for a freshman, right? Whereas he came out last year and he was younger for a freshman. So there's also benefits as far as that goes, because NBA executives really value age as like a developmental metric. I think for players like Cooper, that doesn't really matter if he had just come out, this year and he was 19 and a half years old instead of 18 and a half. He's still going in this draft, he might not.
Would he go number one?
He would still be in the top 3. He's not
question.
dropping super far. Whereas some prospects, getting in earlier, where a team could be like, well, you know what? He reclassified, like Jeremiah Fears, he wasn't super efficient, but he had all of these tools and he ends up going 7. So like, there is a value proposition there for a lot of these players to not only make money earlier, but then you get your first NBA contract, you get more potential based evaluation because you're younger and you're playing up. So, it makes sense to do it.
Agree or disagree with this statement? Cooper Flagg's defensive game is better than his offensive game right now.
Ooh. Disagree.
Oh, okay. Explain.
I think that he's just such a well-rounded offensive player now. Like outside, we talked about his shooting and whatnot, but like, I just think that his connective ability he doesn't force bad shots. Like, he's going to make the right decision. And then I think he's a really solid playmaker. He's not the other guy. Let's, make sure we understand that he's not him as far as a playmaker. Like, he does not.
There are several YouTube commenters that are happy you didn't mention his name.
Yeah. He's not going to be somebody who's, dribbling off a ball screen to the right, a couple of dribbles, because he knows that that's going to force the weak side guy to tag. And then he's not doing that stuff right now, but he still makes high level passes. He's a good decision maker. And I think defensively, like, the things that he really shined at in like high school and even in college is like weak side shot blocking, stuff like that gets muted a little bit in the league because just like the rules are different. You got to be able to 2-9 to get back into the paint. You can't just sit there. So I think that he's a phenomenal defender and a phenomenal defensive prospect, but he doesn't have like next level defensive measurements, right? He has great measurements, but not like 7'4" wingspan type, like crazy outlier stuff. So like it's close, but I just think his offensive value in an offensive based league is going to bring more to the table. He still fits into the ethos of defense wins championships, because he's going to be a fantastic defender. But in the NBA, when you're a star, you got to reserve your defensive energy for the moments. And when you're carrying an offensive load, luckily he'll have players that could help him with that early on in his career. But the goal is for him to be a number one scoring option 6 years down the line. So I'm going to say, offense is going to be his calling card.
Interesting. I've asked several different draft people this, and they've gone back and forth. Like, it's almost 50-50 with like which one they think is better.
It's because it's close. It is close. I just think that, like, big men are really the true like defensive impact makers. Like it's still important to be able to defend the wings. Obviously the best scorers in the league right now are out on the wings, and you got to be able to shut those down. But, those guys are still getting 30, like even if you're putting up a good defensive effort, just like Carter Bryant did in summer league against Cooper, and he still went and got 30, even and when you're playing great defense, guys can still get buckets.
Everybody was raving about Carter Bryant and his defense. And I was like, Cooper still put up 30 points. Like
so like, that's why I think offense is just like a little bit more important.
Jason Kidd said he's going to put the ball in Cooper Flagg's hands early. He kind of referenced Giannis and how he did that when he became Giannis's coach in the second year. And Jason Kidd has suggested that Cooper Flagg will play 2 guard. He's suggested that he'll play point guard at times. What do you think about that proposition for Cooper Flagg? Because Duke sort of did that thing, but I don't know if they went so far as to say like he's going to be our point guard for like these possessions. Yeah,
I mean, point guard now is such a weird term because like once Chris Paul plays his final year out, like, the point guard position is, as we thought about it growing up, or as how maybe it's still being taught at like grassroots levels, is going to disappear. It's these big creators or whoever plays with the ball in their hands, like Mike Conley might be the point guard, but Anthony Edwards is the dude who's playing with the ball in his hands and creating, right? So it's going to be the same. So yeah, he's going to have reps as a primary playmaker, primary initiator, primary creator. And that makes all the sense in the world because, Kyrie is going to be recovering from an injury. This is not going to be like Kyrie getting back to the player that he is this year, right? It's going to be like a process. And hopefully by next year, he's fully healed and ready to go. And these are going to be valuable reps where like, yes, the Mavs are going to be trying to win, and Cooper is a smart player, but he's a rookie and he's going to make mistakes, and he needs to learn how to go through the grind of 82 games. And so, let him do weird stuff and make mistakes. And, if you want to play him at the 2, I don't know, throw in some JJ Redick film, let him run some floppy actions and, and see how it goes. Because really the stakes aren't for this year, right? And you want to put Cooper in a position to where he's getting used to playing with these teammates, and he's just getting to experiment. But like, he's not going to be Klay. He's not going to be running this.
Got one of those at home.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see the weird stuff. That's what I want. I want to see the lineups where it's Cooper Flagg is one of the smallest players on the court because the Mavs have so much size. I want to see the weird stuff. I want to see him run and pick and roll with Anthony Davis, reverse pick and roll with Anthony. Like I want to see all that stuff.
Let's see Lively at the 3.
Let's have him take threes first. Like, I'm ready. I'm ready for that. Coming up, I do want to ask you about Dereck Lively, what you remember about him at Duke, and then the combination of those two. That's what the Mavs' future is kind of dependent on. We'll talk about that and more coming up.
I have to apologize that you felt that he should have played more.
All right, we're here with Corey from No Ceilings. The Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings podcast is live right now. I'm excited. We got second episode dropping today on Wednesday if you're listening and watching this. And I got Corey here. We're talking about Cooper Flagg, and we're talking about his draft class. What do you remember about Dereck Lively and his shortened season at Duke with the injuries? But what did you think about him coming out?
I ended up getting pretty high on him as a prospect. I was a little more skeptical coming into the year. I didn't quite buy the 3-point shooting he had shown in like the EYBL settings and whatnot. And I think maybe one day he gets like, hey, you're open, like shoot it. We'll see. I think his form is pretty okay. But by the end, it was like, he was a weird eval because his advanced metrics were like really, really impressive.
Yeah.
And some of the film matched it. It was just like such low volume that you could be like, hey, like if I get too high on this guy, it could really burn me because he's averaging 4.5 points a game. And cause just the way the season had played out. But by the end of the season, he was really showing some stuff. And the thing that impressed me the most was like his passing. Obviously you're going to see more zone in college. So, they put him at the nail of the free throw line and, he can make really quick reads either to like shooters or like the man trailing the baseline and, cutting and getting to the rim. And there was just like a natural feel there that really impressed me. So, and then the defense, obviously like springy shot blocking, all that.
Yeah. Well, and we've seen some of that in the NBA for sure. Obviously working off of Luka double teams, Kyrie double teams. And then I think the Mavs are going to see a little bit more zone this year because they're not going to be this crazy shooting team this year. I mean, especially if they start the jumbo lineup that Jason Kidd has suggested with like Cooper Flagg, PJ Washington, Dereck Lively, and Anthony Davis, and D'Angelo Russell probably. Like if they start with that, like there's just not enough shooting to go around. And even if you put Klay Thompson into that, there's still just the Anthony Davis and Cooper Flagg spots that I think teams will try and force those guys to take shots. And so I think there will be space for Dereck Lively to work on that off that. How do you see Dereck Lively and Cooper Flagg meshing long term? To me, I think that's like an incredible 4-5 that you can build around.
It's awesome. They're two smart players. Dereck obviously is not a guy who you need to get touches for. Like he's going to fill in and do like the dirty work and find ways to just be efficient. So when you have two smart players like that could play off each other, I think seamlessly, like I think it's going to be like really, really great. Right. And like offense and defense, the defense obviously is going to stand out, that kind of synergy because they're both switchable. But the offense I think is going to be really great too, because, it's going to be hard to guard that pick and roll with Cooper at his size with some of the guys that are going to guard him. And I think that's going to cause some mismatch opportunities too.
Yeah, I think he'll be able to take advantage of that pick and roll. I think Cooper Flagg and Lively pick and rolls it won't be the same as the Luka Lively pick and rolls. Obviously, you mentioned before, like there's just nobody else like Luka in that way. But Flagg is bigger than Luka. I've stood next to both of them, and Cooper Flagg is all of the 6'8", 6'9" that he is listed at, and I think that's going to be an interesting thing to navigate for them. I'm curious also about defensively how that works and how Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, and Dereck Lively all work together. I'm curious how they're going to run that, who guards who, because they're all kind of like good rim protectors, good help side defenders. It's like Anthony Davis and Cooper Flagg. Did they just like let them roam wherever they want, kind of, and just wreak havoc on each side of the court? Like I kind of feel like that may work for them.
I think they should definitely do that at least in spurts, right? I mean, like I think that's a cool thing about having that freedom in your front court and having like athletic guys who are smart, too, like positionally. It's not like, Jackson Hayes is athletic and can block shots, but like he's going to bite on pump fakes, be out of position. Like all these guys are going to be in the right spot. So like if you let them roam, you're not actually going to give up like, kickouts or skips or anything where these guys aren't going to be able to recover. Like they're going to understand where their man, where the ball is and how they can split the difference there. And so I think that's going to be great. Obviously, I think, Anthony Davis is probably going to take, at least in the moments of the game where he's afforded rest time, where he doesn't have to maybe guard the guy who is going to be putting ball screens, or you have to bang in the post, right? Like you're going to have the young guy who is mobile and spry and just has fresher legs handle some of that. But like all three of those guys can kind of do whatever you want. Like it does have, a chance to be a pretty special team. And I think Cooper, we're going to praise him so much because he is so polished. He's great, but like we do have to give him a little bit of grace and a little bit of room and understand that he is still a rookie. And as great as he is, like rookies, if they're a neutral, like they had a great rookie year a lot of
especially an 18-year-old one. Like how many 18-year-old rookies have been good? I mean, we've had, you have to go back to, I don't know, Kobe, Kevin Garnett.
The other guy.
That's true.
Wait,
It's true.
he was 19. He might have been 19.
Yeah, he was a little older, but still. I want to talk about Ryan Nembhard, the guard that was on the Mavs Summer League team. Miles Kelly was the wing on the Mavs Summer League team. What do you remember from Ryan Nembhard at Gonzaga? Why didn't he get drafted? Is it just height?
Yeah, it's height.
It's literally
it's
like
height.
I asked him about that at Summer League. I was like, how does it feel where like literally the only thing is just how tall you are? And he's like, I've had that my whole career basically, and I'm just trying to show him that it doesn't matter as much. Like that's what you got to do, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, look, he is like a devastating height. Like for a guard,
He is not 6 foot.
If you're he measured at 5'11".
And I don't know if he's that. Like, he was on his toes maybe.
But he could play. I had an opportunity to break down film with him and Miles 2 years ago. And then Ryan, a couple of weeks before the draft, and get to see how they think the game, how they read the game, how they accept constructive criticism, how they talk through their mistakes. And some guys get flustered and maybe take it personally, but Ryan is like a really level-headed kid who like understands his game, his role, how he's going to be. I think there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. Like I don't know if he's going to get a lot of time on the main roster. But if he does get called up and he's bouncing up and down, like he has the kind of feel and IQ to not kill you, as much as a short rookie point guard can, like to just fill in tiny spots where guys just need rests. But you saw like kind of the duality of who he is as a player in those summer league games where like he has this massive game against the Lakers in game 1, right? Where he's getting to his spots in the mid-range, he's knocking down shots. And then the next game, he's really quiet, right? Because he as a scorer, he's not necessarily super aggressive. He's definitely like pass first. And when you have a lot of scoring options, that's great, right? But like you do have to be a threat to score the rock. And, I think that's one of the areas where like he'll probably get comped to his brother a little bit because, of course, but like his brother's a little more like, let me go score. So
and 6'5".
Yeah, and taller, he's bigger. So he's not that, but like he can really, really pass the ball. He's super quick. If he's allowed to take mid-range shots in the real games, he's going to bang shots from the elbow, like at a high clip. He's just going to be like a solid backup or third string guard in the league. And at his height, that's a win, like a real win.
Yeah, especially early on, he'll just be spot started. It'll just spot minutes here and there when the Mavs, if they have injuries. The Mavs did add Dante Exum too, which is like now they have a bunch of point guards along with Brandon Williams, D'Angelo Russell, and so it'll be interesting to see how much time he ever does get. But I'll go see him in Frisco to go see him with the Texas Legends. Like that'll be interesting, and I think he'll do really well in the G League. Like I just think that
he's gonna kill it.
He'll probably dominate the G League.
I mean the G League is very much like the NBA draft combine games where it's like organized pickup. And he's like, for a lot of people, those settings are tough because you got to kind of pick your rhythm and find your spots. He's like, but I could play with the ball in my hands and guys aren't really playing defense. So like I could tear that apart. And I think that's what he's going to do to the G League.
He sets the tempo, right? Like it's the Whiplash from the movie with J.K. Simmons, where he's like, this is my tempo. And that's what Ryan Nembhard is going to do. You mentioned you went through film with Miles Kelly. I loved anytime I got to interact with Miles Kelly during Summer League. And he seemed to me just like 3-and-D wing, really confident shooter. What did you see from him? Why do you think he didn't get drafted?
I think it's just been his efficiency and throughout his career. He's a little older, obviously, too. Been to a few spots. He was one of these like breakout guys when he's at Georgia Tech, where it's like this is going to be the year he's going to explode onto the scene, and he just didn't shoot it the way he needed to for that to happen. And then once that happens, it's reputation, and so I think he just didn't live up to the expectations. Obviously, he had like really good year at Auburn this year. Auburn had a phenomenal year in general. But in the NBA, his role is going to be simplified even more than it was, in these college settings where it's like knock down shots, play defense, like you said, like 3-and-D. If he was a little bit taller and he was more of like a 3-4 kind of hybrid rather than kind of like a shooting guard, small forward, that would be helpful too. I think that played against him, but he's a great kid, like with a really good personality, and he knows his game, he knows his role, and the shots just got to drop. And if the shots drop, he can find himself a role. You look at a guy like a Tim Hardaway Jr., right? Or maybe he kind of is able to take over that Jaden Hardy role. That could be something that, I think he could do as well. But the shots got to go in.
Said Tim Hardaway Jr., and I could hear many Mavs fans just like cringe just a little bit.
Maybe, but the guy's been playing for like 400 years now.
I'll tell you, it's true. He's gotten paid, and he's done great things in the NBA, and then some not so great things. But he also has the same level of confidence shooting the ball as Miles Kelly. I'll tell you that.
Miles, you don't got to worry about his confidence. He's going to let it fly.
I kind of love those guys. You're just like, hey, you do what you do, and you got to have that confidence as a shooter, because if you miss 3 or 4 in a row, you can't. You got to do the Deion Waiters. You got to take it. You got to take 30 and not stop it.
Look, man, that's why he's on the floor.
That's right.
That's why he's on the floor.
That's right. What are you working on right now with No Ceilings, and what else do you got going on?
Yeah, I mean, we've been brokering these deals behind the scenes. Albert and I on Thursday, we're going to do an in-depth dive on Cam Boozer, who is replacing Cooper Flagg. We're going to go deep, offense, defense, NBA comps. How does he stack up against this class? How does he stack up against Cooper? Some historical names that you might be throwing out could seem a little hyperbolic, but I mean with my whole chest. And then, this is the preseason process. So this is where we're allowed to get crazy and a little too excited about certain guys. You mentioned Maxwell. Maxwell and Nathan are probably going to talk about some names that I've never heard of, even though
that's right.
And maybe we'll never hear of again. But this is the time to get excited. So we cover, every prospect that is in the draft from top to bottom. You might hear some D2 names at some point. We're crazy. We're draft sickos.
That's right. They're draft sickos. That's why we brought him in. Go listen to Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings. Corey will be on there tomorrow, and then you can go check out the No Ceilings, the site, the Substack. Great stuff on there all the time. I reference it a ton during the draft and all that. So go check out that site. Great stuff all the time. We'll be back with myself, Slightly, and Isaac doing some more Takeoff Thursdays tomorrow, and then we'll have the fantasy draft. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.